Egyptian Army, New Kingdom, 16th to 11th centuries BC. Imagine a time when pharaohs ruled vast lands, and the Egyptian army was their mighty hand. During the New Kingdom era, this army was a powerhouse, feared across the ancient world. Pharaohs like Ramses II led soldiers who were not just fighters, they were well-trained craftsmen of war. Their chariots were like race cars of the desert, swift and deadly, carrying archers who could strike with the precision of a hawk swooping on its prey. The soldiers were equipped with weapons crafted from bronze and shields that could withstand a storm of arrows. This army didn't just fight, it was an organized force, with supply lines that ensured food, and weapons flowed like the Nile's waters. The Egyptian army built an empire on the pillars of discipline, technology, and tactical intelligence, setting a standard for military might in the ancient world. Achaemenid, Persian army, 550–330 BC. In the cradle of civilization, the Achaemenid Persian army was a marvel of its time. Under visionary leaders like Cyrus the Great and Darius, this military force was the backbone of an empire that stretched from the Indus Valley to the fringes of Greece. It was a colorful tapestry of soldiers, with units from all corners of its vast territories, each bringing their own fighting styles and attire to the battlefield. Think of the Persian army as an ancient multinational corporation, with employees from dozens of ethnic groups, each skilled in their own craft of war. They had foot soldiers, horsemen, and even a special unit called the Immortals, elite fighters who were always kept at a strength of 10,000 men. Their numbers never seemed to dwindle, creating an air of invincibility. The Persians were not just fierce warriors, they were also grand strategists. They built roads to connect their empire, allowing messages and troops to move with a speed that would rival today's express delivery. Their supply chains were the envy of the ancient world, ensuring that their army was always fed, armed, and ready. The Achaemenid Persians showed the world how diversity, logistics, and strategic governance could create an army that could hold an empire together for over 2 centuries.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Macedonian army under Alexander the Great, 336–323 BC. The Macedonian army under Alexander the Great was like a finely tuned instrument in the hands of a master musician. This army was a fusion of raw power, speed, and unparalleled tactical acumen. Alexander inherited a military machine fine-tuned by his father, King Philip II, but he played it to perfection. The core of Alexander's army was the phalanx, a group of spearmen arrayed in close formation, their long spears creating a forest of deadly points. Yet the true genius lay in how Alexander used his cavalry. Like a thunderbolt, his companion cavalry would strike, exploiting weaknesses and shattering enemy lines. Alexander himself often rode with this cavalry, leading from the front, a shining example of valor. But Alexander's army wasn't just about the shock of battle, it was also about endurance. His men marched farther and faster than any before them, across lands as diverse as the scorching deserts of Egypt and the snow-capped peaks of the Hindu Kush. They were professional soldiers, trained to fight in any climate, against any foe. The legacy of Alexander's army is not just in the vast lands they conquered, but in the Revo. Roman army, 753 BC, 476 AD. The Roman army was a force that seemed to defy the limitations of time and geography. It wasn't just an army, it was a complex system that turned the Roman Republic and later the Roman Empire into a centuries-spanning behemoth. At the heart of the system were the legions, units of 4,500 to 6,000 soldiers that operated like a self-contained city of war. Each legion was a melting pot of skills, engineers, medics, and scribes, all marched alongside the battle-hardened centurions. Roman soldiers were not mere brawlers. They were the ancient world's engineers, building forts, bridges, and roads that to this day crisscross Europe. Discipline was their creed, training their daily bread, and loyalty their unbreakable bond. The Roman army was the embodiment of the state, with soldiers swearing an oath to the emperor, dedicating their lives to the glory of Rome. Their military tactics were refined through centuries of conflict, from manipular formations that allowed flexibility on the battlefield to the testudo, a shield wall that turned men into a turtle-like fortress. The Roman army taught the world how to wage war on a grand scale, how to manage logistics, how to integrate conquered peoples, and how to maintain an empire. Their legacy is one of military innovation, administrative sophistication, and an understanding of power that shaped the Western world. Mongol army under Genghis Khan, 1206–1368. The Mongol army was like a storm rolling across the steppes, swift and unstoppable. Under Genghis Khan, this nomadic force transformed into the ultimate war machine of the 13th century. It was not just the largest contiguous empire in history they built, but the way they did it that left the world in awe. The Mongols were the embodiment of mobility and adaptability. Their warriors were raised on horseback, their bows were their lifelines, and the open plains their home. They could ride for days, subsisting on little more than mare's milk and the blood of their horses, striking their enemies with sudden ferocious attacks. They were the original blitzkrieg, overwhelming adversaries before they could muster a defense. But the Mongols were more than fierce warriors. They were strategic masterminds. They used espionage, psychological warfare, and a deep understanding of terrain to outmaneuver opponents. Their communication networks, with mounted couriers, were the arteries that kept the empire alive, rapidly transmitting orders across vast distances. Genghis Khan's military leadership was marked by flexibility. He adapted weapons and tactics from conquered peoples, integrating them into his forces. The Mongol army didn't just conquer, it connected east and west, creating a conduit for trade, culture, and knowledge. Their legacy is a testament to the power of innovation, strategic mobility, and cultural integration in warfare. Ottoman Army, 1299–1922. The Ottoman army was a formidable force that at its zenith carved an empire across 3 continents. It was a force that combined the fervor of faith with the fire of innovation, pushing the boundaries of the Islamic world into Europe and challenging the established powers of its time. The Ottomans were early adopters of gunpowder, which they used to devastating effect. Their janissaries, elite infantry units, were among the first to use rifles and cannons in combat, revolutionizing warfare. These troops were the Sultan's loyal servants, taken as levy from Christian territories, and converted to Islam, trained from youth to be the perfect soldiers. But the Ottoman military was not just about the raw power of gunpowder. It was also about the grandeur of its cavalry and the resilience of its navy. The Ottomans used their navy to control key trade routes in the Mediterranean, projecting their power across sea as well as land. Their army was structured with a complex hierarchy and supported by an efficient administrative system that allowed the empire to last for over 6 centuries. The Ottomans showed the world how a disciplined military, combined with innovative technology and effective governance, could sustain an empire that bridged the medieval and modern worlds. Spanish Army during the Spanish Empire, 16th to 17th centuries. The Spanish Army during the age of the Spanish Empire was a titan of military strength, fueled by the wealth of its American colonies. It was an era when Spain was the superpower, and its army, alongside its navy, was the engine of its dominance, especially under the rule of Charles Theuber and Philip II. This army was a tapestry of tercios, formidable infantry units that were the pride of the Spanish military system. The tercios were a mix of pikemen, swordsmen, and arquebusiers, a type of early musketeer. This combination of troops allowed for both strong defensive formations and powerful offensive firepower, a tactic that would dominate European battlefields for over a century. The Spanish tercios were not just a fighting force, they were a symbol of martial prowess and national pride. Their discipline was legendary, and their battle tactics advanced. They were the inventors of the square formation, which provided 360-degree defense and allowed them to hold their ground against cavalry charges. Spain's military might was amplified by its armadas, which protected its treasure fleets laden with gold and silver from the New World. The wealth these fleets brought back financed wars across Europe and helped maintain Spain's position as a leading European power. The Spanish Army's legacy is one of tactical innovation, global reach, and the use of colonial wealth to fuel military might. British Army during the British Empire, 19th, early 20th centuries. During the British Empire's zenith, the British Army stood guard over vast territories, epitomizing the era when the sun never sets on the British Empire. Renowned for professionalism and discipline, the Army, though not the largest, was a prestigious institution in British society. Supported by the dominant Royal Navy, it projected British power globally, securing colonies and trade. Embracing innovation, the British Army integrated technologies like the rifled musket and the Maxim gun, augmenting its combat efficiency. A sprawling railway network further bolstered its operational reach, essential for empire sustenance. Its colonial warfare strategy blended force with persuasion, often exerting superior military might to suppress uprisings while also attempting to win hearts through infrastructure development and institution building. The British Army's imperial legacy is multifaceted, marked by conquests, technological progression, and the profound influence of military organization on the governance of an extensive, multicultural empire. French Army under Napoleon, late 18th, early 19th centuries. Napoleon's Grande Armée was a military colossus that rewrote the rules of warfare. This army was not just a fighting force, it was a revolution in boots, marching across Europe with a new doctrine of speed, mobility, and flexibility. Napoleon's soldiers were the first to be organized into corps, a system that allowed for independent operation while supporting the larger force, an innovation that modern armies still use. The Grande Armée's tactics were audacious, combining artillery, infantry, and cavalry in synchronized maneuvers. Napoleon himself was a master strategist, capable of seeing the battlefield as a chessboard, where he could outthink and outmaneuver his adversaries. His use of massed artillery, the Grand Battery, could break enemy lines and morale alike. But beyond tactics, Napoleon's genius lay in his ability to inspire his men. He created a meritocratic system where talent led to promotion, not birthright. His soldiers fought with a fervor, believing in the glory of France and their emperor. The legacy of the Grande Armée is found in its shock and awe campaigns, which changed how generals conceived battles, and in the spirit of nationalism it ignited across Europe. The army's downfall during the invasion of Russia also serves as a stark lesson in overreach and the limits of logistics. German Army during World War I and II, 1914, 1918, 1939, 1945. The German Army, during both World Wars, was a powerhouse of military innovation and might, though it ultimately met with defeat. In World War I, the German military was a formidable force, introducing new tactics like the use of stormtroopers and infiltration methods that would break the stalemate of trench warfare. The army was also among the first to use poison gas, a horrifying new weapon that changed the face of warfare. World War II saw the German army, or Wehrmacht, perfecting the art of blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This strategy emphasized rapid movement, coordination between tanks, infantry, and air power, and the element of surprise to overwhelm enemies. The early successes of the blitzkrieg in Poland, France, and the early stages of the Soviet invasion were nothing short of spectacular. However, the German army's initial success was overshadowed by strategic blunders, such as the failure to capture Moscow in 1941 and the prolonged and ultimately disastrous campaign in Stalingrad. These defeats, combined with the relentless pressure from the Allied forces and the vast resources of the Soviet Union, led to the German army's eventual surrender. The German military's legacy is controversial, marked by unparalleled tactical innovation, but also by the atrocities committed. Its history serves as a stark reminder of the destructive potential of military power, when coupled with expansionist ideology and disregard for humanity. Soviet Army during World War II, 1939-1945. The Soviet Army played a pivotal role in World War II, ultimately tipping the scales against Nazi Germany. At the onset, the Army suffered staggering losses due to purges of its officer corps and underestimation of the German threat. However, Soviet resilience and industrial might began to turn the tide after the harrowing siege of Stalingrad in 1942-1943, which became a turning point. Soviet strategy was characterized by its sheer scale and willingness to endure losses for strategic gains. The Red Army's vast numbers were supported by prolific tank production, like the T-34, which became a symbol of Soviet military prowess. The brutal winter of 1941 also played into Soviet hands as they adapted to conditions that proved catastrophic for the Germans. Under the leadership of generals like Zhukov and Rokossovsky, the Soviet Army went on the offensive, eventually pushing the Germans back across Eastern Europe and capturing Berlin in 1945. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad, followed by the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, showcased the Red Army's growing sophistication in combined arms warfare. Post-war, the Soviet Army emerged as one of the two strongest military forces in the world, underpinning the USSR's status as a superpower during the Cold War. Its actions during the war had profound implications, shaping the geopolitical landscape of the latter half of the 20th century. United States Army, 20th-21st centuries. Since its emergence as a global superpower after World War II, the United States Army has been a leading force in military innovation and reach. The U.S. Army helped orchestrate the defeat of Axis powers with its massive industrial output and ability to deploy forces across multiple theaters simultaneously. Post-war, the Army was a central component of the Cold War strategy, deterring Soviet aggression through a combination of nuclear and conventional forces. The U.S. Army's technological advancements have been critical. It pioneered the use of tanks and air support in combined arms warfare, and later, precision-guided munitions and network-centric warfare. This technological edge has been maintained through substantial investment in research and development, resulting in cutting-edge equipment and capabilities. The Army has also adapted to changing forms of conflict, from conventional state-on-state warfare to counterinsurgency and asymmetric warfare against non-state actors. Conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq have tested and shaped the Army, leading to changes in doctrine, equipment, and tactics. The U.S. Army's projection of power is global, with bases and deployments worldwide to support American foreign policy. This reach, combined with a continuous push for innovation, ensures the U.S. Army remains one of the most potent military forces into the 21st century.